Or this time, it could be
Inhuman. Insane.
So frightening, you may never...
All the growing things that start with hope and seed grow up to sun and rain through early frost and weeds, except the newborn child who will not ever grow unless you love him well and always let him know. A child is not a rose, and that's why I suppose an early frost can kill more than you think it will. Flowers can bloom again, and they forget the frost. Children get but one chance, and then the blue.
Hi, I'm Barbara Crampton from Chopping Mall, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to the Hysteria Continues episode. I think, Erik, you said it was 235.
235.
235. And to paraphrase Val in the film we're covering, what the bloody hell's going on here is, yes, we're covering 1982's head-scratcher Australian slasher Early Frost. Expect spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen the movie, then go and watch it. It's on YouTube. I don't know if it ever got any other kind of release. I know it played on TV in the UK and in the US and Australia, obviously. But we are going to spoil it partly because we don't really, perhaps a spoiler alert already, really understand the ending. So we're going to be discussing that. But so we're back with an obscure Australian slasher movie in 1982. What other podcast could you listen to where who on earth else would cover Early Frost apart from
Maybe Gemma Collins' podcast, maybe
the Gemma Collins podcast? I don't know, maybe, or RuPaul, maybe or any of that. Who knows? Maybe that will start a fashion for Early Frost, a renaissance. But we are back, and we're excited to be talking this one because quite often, we are up to 235 now, so we are, it just goes to show how many slashers were made, and we still have 255,000 to go, so we'll be around for a little while longer, for better or worse. But anyway, yes. So, Erik, how are you doing?
I'm fair dinkum. I'm totally fair dinkum.
Well, it's good to be going back to Australia. And Nathan, how about you?
I am very ready to discuss an Early Frost.
Oh, okay. I've just got Tiger, the cat, is sat here, and he makes high-pitched squeaking noises, so if you hear that.
After Tiger in The Burning?
No, but now you come to mention it, that's I do have a bit of a long list of names of cats that have been horror movie directors, so maybe he's partly inspired by Tiger, or he's not wearing very short shorts at the moment, but he will survive a horror movie, hopefully. So, and Joseph, how's it going?
Oh, it's going. That's all you need to know.
And why did you choose Early Frost? We'll get on to some recently seen, but was this a listener pick?
Yeah, this is a listener pick from a filmmaker and friend, Joshua Grattan. He directed Cuties, not the Netflix Troublemaker film, but a slasher film from a couple of years back. And he wanted us to cover this. He was kind enough to donate to the show, and so we are covering Early Frost. And if it weren't for Joshua, I'm not certain we ever would have.
Well, I'd never heard of it.
I had heard of it, and it's a film that I kind of had a copy of a long time ago, but I never got around to watching because there's quite a few very obscure New Zealand and Australian horror movies like Trial Run and those kind of movies which you don't. And there's still a few I haven't seen. So thank you. Well, we'll be saying a little bit later. We'll be thanking or cursing Joshua for introducing us to Early Frost. But before we get on to that, let's have a little chat about what we've been watching. So, Joseph, have you seen anything you want to have a chat about?
Yeah, this will be of little interest to Erik, but Justin, you and Nathan might be intrigued. I started watching the Freeform series Cruel Summer It airs on Hulu the day after Freeform, and it tells the story of a socially awkward teenage girl in 1993 who becomes the most popular girl in school in 1994, and then finally in 1995 she becomes the most hated girl in the country. That happens when it's discovered that this isn't so much a spoiler because they gave it away in the trailer, but she may or may not have had something to do with the disappearance of the former queen bee in the school. So that girl has just resurfaced, and she has an interesting story to tell about where she's been. I mean, of course, it's all very melodramatic and corny, but the series, it works so well thanks to some interesting characters and a damn near flawless representation of not only 1993 through 1995 respectively, but the changes in personality and like appearances from the characters. It feels like, really authentic, with very few anachronisms. The way it zips back and forth through time is also very interesting. It's sort of like if Stranger Things and Pulp Fiction had sex with the girl next door, minus any hint of the supernatural. It's just basically kind of like a teen drama, not necessarily horror, but horror fans will spot the influences, and I think people like us would love all the soapy elements. I think those are top notch. Like I said, it's streaming across I think several platforms, but I catch it on Hulu. So if you're able, it's a fun way to kill an hour a week. I recommend it.
Okay, well, sounds interesting. I don't know why Erik wouldn't like it. It sounds like his secondary school experience.
He would probably like the show, but Erik doesn't typically watch shows.
Yeah, there's too many hours you need to devote to them. It does sound good. I'd like to watch it in 90-minute or 2-hour movie form rather than 10-hour miniseries or whatever it is.
Yeah, each episode's like 45 minutes long, and there's like 10, but they air them like weekly instead of like all at once, so you have to kind of wait till the next week.
Well, it sounds good. Is it a kind of comedy edged, or is it a drama, or is it horror, or is it?
No, it's a very dark drama. It's got some horror tinges here and there with the abduction and the disappearance and all this stuff, but it's totally soapy teen drama, but very dark.
And does it use Bananarama's Cruel Summer as its theme music?
No, it's set in the 90s.
Yeah, but they could still use it. I still listen to Bananarama, and it's 2020s.
Well, yeah, but no, you mostly hear a lot of stuff like Garbage and all those bands from the early 90s. But yeah, it's done really well, though.
Cool. Have you seen this, Nathan?
Yes, I am caught up on it as well.
Oh, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I think that they do a very good job, like you said, of transitioning between like 1993, 94, and 95, because the characters are so different in, with each like year that passed, that it's easy to tell what time frame you're in, depending on what scene is happening. And so far, the show's doing a really good job of kind of, like answering a question in one episode, but then it raises like 3 more questions. I mean, so it definitely keeps you intrigued. I'm very interested to see where it goes. But yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I love all that soapy teen drama kind of stuff, though.
Yeah, I don't see them like necessarily lasting beyond a season, because really, how far can you take this story? But for 10 episodes, I could see this turning into something, memorable.
Agreed.
Cool. Excellent. Okay, well, that's one to watch out for. So anything else?
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay, well, Nathan, how about you?
Unfortunately, I've not had the greatest week, so I haven't really had time to watch much, aside from stuff that I've already seen now. But I do have some lined up that I'm going to check out, so I will have some recently seen for next time.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Erik, how about you?
Yeah, well, my 3D home viewing saga continues. It's still a real novelty for me to finally have the ability to watch films in 3D. So on Nathan's recommendation, I bought the Final Destination 5 Blu-ray. Now, I did see this in the cinema, but I was looking up the release date of this film, 2011, so it's 10 years old, which is absurd to think that this film was released 10 years ago. So the 3D effects in it are amazing. I mean, the this is the one with the premise where the bridge collapses. So there's some amazing effects in that scene alone at the start of the film, including one where a metal pole pierces a guy's head and comes out the front in glorious 3D, dangling over the audience. And a woman, as Nathan said when we were talking about this a few episodes ago, she lands on top of a sailboat, and the pole or of the sail, whatever you call it.
You know what, Eric? Sorry. Now that you're mentioning Final Destination 5, we really need to get caught up on the series overall.
Yeah.
We've left off with part 1. I think part 2 should be a not too soon.
Definitely.
I mean, not too far into the future pick.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So the 3D in this is pretty darn good. Well, it's really excellent, and alongside that, the film is just great fun as well. Even if in 2D, the film would be great fun. There's such memorable moments in it as the famous gymnastics scene with the woman on the what do you call those bars that they spin around?
Balance beam.
Is that what it's called? Well, she's on the balance beam, but then she does the spinning around on the bars and stuff.
The parallel bars, maybe.
Yeah.
Or
What's a pommel horse?
That's
a teacher at Springfield Elementary. Yeah, it's like the thing that they used in Gymkata, where he's spinning around on the pommel horse kicking people.
It's got the 2 handles on it, and
yeah.
So that's a pommel horse. What else? What other? Oh yeah, Final Destination 5, of course, was totally memorable to me for its amazing twist ending, which I didn't see coming, but. In retrospect, I remember going to the cinema and noticing that certain things like old style mobile phones being used all the time, and thinking that's a bit odd, but not thinking much of it until the final scene comes up and you realize, oh, that's why. So that's very clever. So my 3D viewing continued then with a double bill of Charles Band early 80s 3D ness, with a double bill of Parasite and Metal Storm. So I'd seen both of these before in 2D, never in 3D, and both of them have, for the most part, 95% of the time, excellent 3D effects. They're very old school in their plotting, in that Parasite has no plot really, famous of course for being a early, if not debut role for Demi Moore, but it really has not much of a plot, and it's all centered around its 3D effects, which is not a problem for me. Certain scenes will play out in slow motion, so the 3D effect is there, for your eyes to have time to adjust to watch it, but it doesn't serve the plot in any way. It's set in kind of a post-apocalyptic future where this man has invented this parasite that he needs to now stop, and it starts picking off this, I suppose, Mad Max biker gang one by one. Metal Storm is kind of a spacey Krull type movie or Space Hunter type movie set in probably a distant planet. I'm not sure. Maybe it's Earth. It has lots of scenes of cars driving down roads in 3D and the cars flying over the camera and that, and it's really quite effective. Again, neither film is going to win any Oscars because the plots are wafer thin and the 3D effect is shameless. I love my 3D effects the way I like my men, shameless. So
and dead.
Hey,
what?
Oh,
I don't like them dead. It's just that they all happen to die on me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been on a 3D buzz at the moment, and that's what I've been watching. Films I've seen before, but catching up now on Blu-ray 3D. So expect more of the same on the next episode.
Fantastic. Okay, yeah, sounds good. Anything else?
I watched one called Blood Tide from 1982, which is it's from a director called Richard Jeffries, who wrote Scarecrows from 1988. And this is one of his 2 directorial efforts. I think it's a Greek US co-production because it's produced by Nico Mastorakis, who did things like Island of Death and The Wind and films like that. And it stars James Earl Jones and Martin Kove, actually, from Karate Kid and Cobra Kai. He's in it as well, an early role for him. So it's basically a kind of Creature from the Black Lagoon type movie, or Humanoids from the Deep, except it's just one monster. James Earl Jones is an archaeologist who is doing some underwater excavations that accidentally unleashes this monster that's briefly glimpsed for good reason throughout the movie, as the effect is very cheap. But the monster is worshipped by the villagers on this small Greek island that the film is set in. So it has kind of a Wicker Man vibe as well, because they need to sacrifice a virgin to appease the monster. So it's very, very trashy, very silly. I don't know how James Earl Jones got roped into it, because I'm pretty sure he was a big name at this stage in 1982. I mean, he was Darth Vader after all, the voice of. It's fun. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's set in Greece, so it's got the glorious backdrop of, these turquoise seas and glorious landscapes. So if nothing else, that will keep you entertained. Fun to see Martin Cove as well in there, because the only thing I think I've seen him in before was the Karate Kid series. So yeah, interesting little movie. Not a must see, but a fun sort of little monster flick if you're bored.
Yeah, well, I imagine James L. Jones probably sort of was kind of charmed by the idea of the Greek holiday as well.
Well, true. I mean, this is what Michael Caine said about accepting the role on Jaws: The Revenge, because it was being filmed in the Caribbean.
Yeah, I think it's probably along those lines. But okay, I remember seeing that. I remember seeing the video box for that, but I don't think I've ever seen it. Always got it mixed up with Devouring Waves. There's Lamberto Bava, the monster shark.
Oh yes, yeah.
But okay, excellent. Okay, well, I've not seen a great deal for the last couple of weeks. I've been sort of busy with other things, but one I did catch up with, and it's a bit of a kind of sister film, well, not a sister film, but in tone anyway, with our recent Patreon pick, which is Lake Mungo. My pick, which is kind of quite a somber film, kind of scary, somber, sort of mockumentary, Australian mockumentary, again, another Australian film. But I caught up with a new film called The Dark and the Wicked, which is by director Dylan Bertino. And it's, I didn't realize until I started watching it, really, it is a kind of another, kind of one of those kind of downer kind of movies. I think there's definitely and when we look back, probably in 5 years' time, they'll definitely look about the kind of this time in horror that a lot of films are kind of along the kind of Hereditary style, kind of sort of scary movies, but are done in quite a sort of downbeat kind of way. And that's The Dark and the Wicked definitely sort of fits into that. And again, it's another film about kind of grief and sort of around a family whose father is in a coma and is basically dying. And his adult children come back to help their mother on this goat farm, and basically something dark and wicked kind of starts to infiltrate the family and the farm and the animals and everything. It's not a fun movie. It's not a feel-good movie by any stretch, but I kind of really liked it. It's very downbeat, but it's actually I thought it was quite spooky and quite scary in places. So again, if you're kind of in the mood for something that's not popcorn thriller or horror by any stretch, then The Dark and the Wicked is definitely worth a look. So any of you guys seen that?
No, hadn't heard of it.
No.
Me either.
Okay, well, one to watch then. No. Talking of something, well, that was sort of dark and mysterious, and well, our feature presentation is definitely mysterious in all sorts of different kinds of ways.
A divorce investigation leads to the discovery of a corpse. And that was from the IMDb's plot synopsis of Early Frost, because good luck finding any promotional material or even a clear image of the film's VHS release.
That's an in-depth synopsis, though.
Yeah, it's very in-depth. Early Frost, it seems to truly have been lost to the sands of time, and that might be explained more so by its confusing nature and lack of any real momentum as a labeled thriller. The story, it centers around a widow named Val who, along with her two sons, she becomes mixed up in an investigation into a series of accidents that may be orchestrated by someone close to the family, I think. This is where Early Frost loses what little goodwill it has going for it. The film is jumbled and dark where the plot matters the most. The print I watched on YouTube was serviceable, but only when it wasn't important to the plot. And so all the instances that go toward explaining who the killer is and his motive, all that stuff remains hidden underneath all this murkiness and all these plot deceptions that make little to no sense. It's a shame too because Early Frost takes an interesting approach to the body count structure. It does this by way of a fractured, dysfunctional family dynamic. I mean, it's a conceit that would give the film its own voice if you could understand it at all. The lead character of Val, played by Diana McLean, well, she's an interesting case study in how to take one of the most despicable, hateful characters of all time and make them a lead in a story, and that a lead that you actually kind of enjoy watching. I mean, this character is so devoid of any redeeming personality traits that you don't so much as hate her as you wonder just how low she'll stoop next. She spends 90% of the film kind of embroiled in affairs, alcoholism, parental neglect, and the complete destruction of her family that you kind of anxiously await her demise. But at the end, you walk away completely frustrated because you simply can't make out the payoff, if any. Like as we said before, disclosure, this was a listener pick from way back by our good friend and filmmaker, Joshua Grattan, who he directed the film Cuties a few years back. And all I can really say to Joshua is that I really enjoyed Cuties, and probably much more than Early Frost. I would have preferred to talk about Cuties, but I don't know. Early Frost, it really reminded me of something like The Ghost Dance. It's a film, both films are rife with possibilities. And, but unfortunately, the possibilities are kind of buried underneath poor transfer, poor production value. And it kind of looks doubtful that we'll ever see a proper print of Early Frost. So it's not a bad movie. I mean, it's kind of interesting. It's certainly mysterious, but it's just infinitely frustrating. Erik, what were your thoughts on Early Frost, and did you make more sense from it than I?
I think I did, but I think I didn't watch the version on YouTube. I went to the cinema to see it, and the print.
Oh, okay.
The print was I think probably better than what you were watching. So it because I didn't notice it being significantly dark. I really enjoyed it for the most part, and it was a surprise to me. Because as I've come to expect from Australian slasher cinema, they tend to be very far removed from Friday the 13th or Halloween. If you think of something like Snapshot, which was marketed as a slasher and isn't really, I mean, you can see there that it's, it's not exactly Jason Voorhees. This has, in its defense, more of a slasher feel. There's more mystery and intrigue, but it does still play quite like a drama. I thought there was quite some interesting things in it. For starters, two middle-aged women are two central characters, which I thought was a complete change of pace to the normal slashers, which are teens or early 20s. Although the character of Peg, we were saying this before we started recording, the character of Peg is she's kind of one of the two central characters for the bulk of the film, and then about an hour into it she just disappears for no reason, and she doesn't come back for the rest of the film, which was quite odd. I do like this sort of kitchen sink drama feel. These people feel like real characters, like real people. Maybe, as you said, Val is a bit she starts off likable, I think, and people are talking to her quite nastily at the start. Like her friend Peg says to her, she need it reminded me of Robin and Maddie in The New Blood, Friday the 13th Part 7, because she more or less says you need a little touch-up work. And then when she meets her boyfriend Paul in the nightclub, he says things to her like, oh, did you apply your makeup with a trowel or something like that? And he says it's about time you started wearing some makeup and looking after yourself. You're not getting any younger. I mean, people are so horrible to her. But then when we see the flashbacks to her earlier life and how she treated her children and her husband, we can see that she's kind of brought this on herself. But it still begs the question, why is Peg hanging out with her so much, and why is Peg so nice? Well, mostly so nice to her. The film, it's I suppose it's the ending is the only thing that confused me, in that we were discussing this before we started recording, and it's unclear exactly who the villain is now, and I think maybe they're deliberately leaving it vague, just to make it end on a question mark, like the way something like The Thing ends, and which is quite good, but I would have liked maybe a slightly bit more clarity on what the ending is about. But as I said, the film is definitely more of a slasher film than a lot of the Aussie movies we've seen. Probably more of a slasher film than even Road Games, I would say. I did love the bit where the fuse box is booby-trapped to electrocute the next person who touches it, which happens to be Val, and it sends her flying across her porch. Don't panic, she doesn't die, she's okay, she wakes up in her bed and she's fine. But it did make me chuckle, that scene, I have to say.
Erik, I was just going to say, do you think is that realistic if someone is electrocuted so much they fly across the veranda by about 20 feet and then they wake up in the morning completely fine and as if nothing's happened?
I would say it's probably not very realistic, no. I'd say she would have burn marks on her hands for starters. But I do think it was quite fun. It's obviously not meant to be funny, but scenes of is it Scream for Help is the film where the woman is pushed down the stairs in the wheelchair, where it has to be done in a very specific way, otherwise it's just going to be laughable, and that's what it is in this. But there is this whole subplot revolving around this photograph that has a picture of Peg and lots of middle-aged women standing, I think, beside a swimming pool, and it's all the women in the photograph are being killed. But unless I missed something, I don't think that plot strand is ever resolved. We don't understand the meaning behind the photograph. Because I never
understood the meaning of why people were dying at all. I mean,
yeah.
I didn't understand any of it.
Yeah, so we don't understand I didn't understand the reason these people were being killed. I mean, I'm guessing it has something to do with this photograph, and I thought there was going to be some kind of Giallo-like explanation at the end, because in Giallos there's often like a photograph and there'll be some explanation at the end where all those people were responsible for the drowning of a young boy called Jason or something like that. But that doesn't happen. It's like this photograph is set up as a major plot point and then not resolved. But overall, I would say I was pleasantly surprised. When I heard it was kind of a lost film, I thought, okay, is it going to be lost for a reason because it's dreadful? But it wasn't. I think it's well made. It has, it's not got graphic murders or anything, but it's got an intriguing plot, and it's the ending I could do with, discussing with you guys probably. But overall, I thought it was a pretty decent film.
All right, Nathan, what did you think?
I really enjoyed Early Frost. I mean, of course, like you guys, I was confused by a lot of stuff in it, but I didn't know if it's just because I'm dumb, or if it's because, the movie's just a little confusing. But I love the soap opera a lot, kind of arguments and stuff, especially between, the brother and Val. I love the scene where, he's trying to get her to be a good mother, but, she's too busy because she's in bed with, one of her guys. And the guy ends up beating her son up really bad, too, which I was like, yeah, that's probably not a way to, get into her good graces or anything, going about it that way. With the ending, I was, like I said, super confused. I was trying to figure out, like, okay, there's so much we need to talk about. Like, spoiler alerts here. The kid is the killer, right? I mean, he's the one that rigged up the arrow.
Maybe. Not too certain about that, honestly.
Is he? Because
my understanding is there might be multiple killers, or at least two, with the twist. I mean, it's really. I mean, the print doesn't know favors, and it's so vague. I felt like I was being toyed with.
Because the person who ties up the brother and then sets the spear gun, looks like they're wearing a raincoat or something in the shadow. It doesn't look like a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah, but he has you can see the long hair. Looks like it is the kid's. That's what I thought anyway. But just the fact that he's rigging up the spear gun or harpoon, whatever it is made me think, okay, he was behind it all the time. But then I was thinking, he's only 11 or 12, whatever he's supposed to be, and if that's the case, he's created a car bomb and he has managed to rig the fuse box to electrocute somebody. It's a bit far-fetched.
Well, it could be a science project.
I think he like set out to kill like one person, but someone else was killing everyone else. And
Josh, you got to write and let us know what your interpretation is of the ending. because, since you picked this movie, I'm sure that you probably have an interpretation on the finale.
Well, maybe there was an early Frost Volume 1 and Volume 2 like Kill Bill, and we just haven't seen Volume 2.
Oh, maybe. But no, I mean, I did love the movie. Like I said, I was confused a lot, but I thought all the actors did well, and the dialogue, I thought was, entertaining. It was an entertaining movie, definitely. So, I'd watch it again.
Justin, your thoughts?
Yeah, it was a first time watch for me, and it's a film that I'd kind of been on my radar, but I'd never seen before. And I think partly because I'd seen reviews of it, and the very few that were online were kind of saying that it was very confusing and a bit of a missed opportunity. But it is an odd film. I mean, Australian slashers, sort of at the early 80s, and there were a number of them, like Nightmares, Snapshot, aka Day After Halloween. Probably Nightmares, the one with the killer in the theatre, is probably the most kind of slasherific of those kind of early 80s slash movies. So this had a kind of weird mixture. I mean, partly because a lot of the people in it were from soaps, so it was kind of low budget affair, and it has that kind of soapy feel, kind of the drama feel with it. But you've got the killer who's kind of shuffling around unseen, but this kind of heavy breathing killer, which makes it even less likely it's a kind of an 11-year-old boy. So you've got this killer kind of hiding behind the kind of nylon sort of pleated skirts in the department store in this crazy sort of scene where Val and Peg are shopping after she gets a new hairdo, which makes it look like Dave Hill from Slade, with a really short fringe, and she cheers herself up by getting sort of like makeup like Tammy Faye Baker. And then to add insult to injury, the killer is hiding behind the drip by nylon pleated skirts, and then sends a kind of, I don't know what it is, like a shopping trolley down, and knocks this young shop assistant off a ladder and dies by falling through a glass coffee table that just happens to be next to him. So this all kind of very sort of strange kind of setup. But then you've got this kind of heavy breathing killer who kind of turns up and stares at people through the windows. And there's a scene towards the end of the film where there's this kind of teenage party where Val throws. I'm not even sure what the party's for. I don't even say that. It's very kind of Australian in so much that you find in flashback the Val. She hates her sons, but I think it's partly because she feels guilty because she got drunk at the lake and threw a beer can at her husband, who knocked him on the head and gave him concussion, and then almost drowned her younger son, who she insisted go swimming. And the father goes out to save him and then drowns. So this is all kind of where presumably all the kind of the mental kind of gymnastics come from, who's going to be the killer, and so they're very dysfunctional. But you got this party scene at the end, and you've got this POV shot of presumably the killer, and this kind of heavy breathing, like the killer in My Bloody Valentine, walking through all these teenagers drinking beer, and that doesn't go anywhere. And you have the scene, like talking of slightly unintentionally funny scenes, that there's a private eye who is investigating, I think he's kind of private eye investigating his divorce, but he gets caught up in all these middle-aged women who are being murdered. But the killer, for some reason, and again, possibly a bit of a missed opportunity when you're trying to ape the kind of successful slasher movie formula out of the United States, but a killer is killing these middle-aged women by injecting them with some kind of serum, which kills them by mimicking a stroke. So all these middle-aged women are being found with strokes, presumably died of having a stroke, which kind of causes although you never see the police in this, but Private Eye sort of tries to warn Val and Peg that the killer is after them. So that seemed like a bit of a missed opportunity, because if you had a killer going around killing these women in slasher movie styling, then that may have made more sense. But as far as the ending goes, say you have this kind of very convoluted thing with Val gets very drunk, and as you mentioned, her squeeze beats up one of her sons, and then the killer ties her son up and then rigs up this harpoon gun in this kind of convoluted kind of mousetrap kind of setup, And then his other, her other son comes in, and you're not sure if he's the killer, and he's only about 11 or 12 years old. And for some reason, he's the one who gets harpooned. But at the end of the movie, you see somebody injecting a syringe into a kind of this pot with the idea that probably going to be going after more middle-aged women. So the killer hasn't been fingered, as it were. But I think my gut feeling is that the killer had nothing to do with any of them, apart from it was David, who was that was Peg's teenage or early 20-something son, who has this hobby of collecting clippings of crimes, local crimes, in a scrapbook, which he shows the PI, much to Peg's displeasure. And I think he was just killing people because he wanted a hobby. And he said to his mother, a boy needs a hobby. And I think he was just killing people because he wanted to keep his scrapbook going.
Yeah, it's almost like that whole thing was like a red herring, maybe. I don't know.
Well, there was a bit, again, you have that kind of slash movie thing with like, there's one of the character, and this is where the print I saw on YouTube as well, where it all gets a bit dark towards the end of the movie. And it was obviously meant to kind of basically sort of up the atmosphere. And I think in a decent print it would, but again, you had a bit of a humongous problem for before it got cleaned up for the digital age on VHS. It was so dark you couldn't really see anything happening, and so you had a little bit of this going on. But one of the characters gets decapitated, and Val finds his head in the one kind of gory bit. But the other bit that made me laugh a little bit was this is all total spoiler territory, but the PI, presumably if the 11-year-old has rigged up this guy's car at the motel with an incendiary device, and the PI gets into it, turns it on, and it blows up, and it's completely engulfed in flames, and there's people running past with buckets of water. I should have thought it was a bit far gone for that, really, wasn't it?
Well, at least they were trying to help.
Well, I kind of guess, but it wouldn't look like I don't think a bucket of water would put out that inferno. But it doesn't. It didn't. I mean, when you look at the production history, and we'll talk about that in a bit, I think it was troubled, put it that way. So I think it's I think they may have patched together what they could with the movie, but it is left open to interpretation. But it's a lot of plot holes, and it doesn't really come together at the end. But overall, I kind of I like Australian films from this time. It has a kind of a unique flavour. Australian exploitation movies of this time have that kind of unique flavour, so I definitely dug that. I kind of enjoyed it. I just thought it was overall a bit of a missed opportunity, but certainly if you've got an interest in a subgenre and you want to see how things developed and how different countries took that kind of source material, or the ideas of the Friday 13th and your Halloweens, and did something different with them, then Early Frost is definitely a unique take on the subgenre, definitely.
Justin, I've also got a humongous problem in my underpants.
What, you still got piles?
You know what I mean. No, I don't have piles.
Anyway, so back to you, Joseph.
Back to me. I mean, like you guys said, I don't think it's a terrible film. And it does have its own kind of unique voice, but unfortunately that voice is muffled. And I think maybe a clean print would really benefit this film.
You should have gone to see it in the cinema like I did.
Yeah, maybe even like I don't know who they could get to comment on the film who could make sense of it, but maybe someone involved with the writing or the production. I think that would, do the film a service.
Indeed. Well, yes, if anyone will own up to that.
Or maybe an academic could come in, because they're really well qualified to talk about films.
You snarky little bitch.
Well, shall we go into some background?
Nathan, do you have any background?
No.
Eric, do you have any background?
Well, okay, I only have a snippet here. Kit Taylor, who plays Paul Sloan, who is the boyfriend of Val, he was also in Innocent Prey. I think he was the ex-husband of PJ Souls, wasn't he, in that film? I think he is. So he had a double dose of slasher Aussie mayhem back then. There's actually a kind of a sad coda to this film in real life. There is something that local papers at the time called the jinx of early frost, which is that the actor John Blake, who plays Peter Meadows, the older son of Val, he was involved in a car accident in 1987, I believe, which left him in a vegetative state for the rest of his life. He died in 2013. And the younger son in the film, Joey Meadows, played by Daniel Comerford, he was killed crossing a subway track in 1989. He was hit by a train. So the two brothers in this met sad ends, unfortunately, and as I said, the local papers called it the curse of early frost. So that's all of the background I have.
Okay. Well, I have a little bit more here. Erik read most of it, but the film was shot in Blacktown, Australia in mid to late 1981, from what I could gather. And it was later released to VHS in Australia by Medusa Communications. As Erik said, John Blake, who played Peter, he was involved in an accident, left him in brain damage for the rest of his life. The actor, actually, Erik, I think you said Daniel Comerford died in 89. I think it was 87.
Oh, was it? Sorry.
Yeah, this was like right before they started doing, they started fencing up the train tracks more thoroughly. There was like a feature about that in the...
Oh yeah, I'm just looking it up here. Yeah, it was Christmas Eve, 1987. Oh.
Ooh, yeah, that's rough. But the exploding Jaguar featured in the film belonged to producer David Hannay. He said in a correction to a capsule review on the IMDb, quote unquote, "It was actually my XJ6 Jaguar that was blown up in early frost, not Terry's. But yes, Terry was a local Blacktown boy. The reason the late Guy Dolman was cast was because 20 years earlier he had been my mentor when I was a young actor. I didn't do him any favors, unfortunately. Terry was not the original director, and as the writer, was not responsible for what went wrong. The original director was removed, and Jeff Brown, the co-producer, and I did what we could to fix the picture. It is to this day the only Australian film to have no director's credit." He says to see David Stratton's book, The Great Avocado Plantation, for more detail. And that is all the background I was able to dig up. What about you, Justin?
Not much more than that, really, apart from the fact is most of the cast, as I mentioned, were on soap operas like The Restless Years and Young Doctors. The film originally, it was shot under the title Something Wicked, in Western Sydney, and the filming dates I've seen are June to August 1981. It was shot on 35mm, and it was obviously never got a cinema release, even in its native Australia.
Hang on, I saw it in the cinema.
Well, maybe Erik's Emporium or whatever. I don't know, but it never got a theatre. It says unreleased theatrical feature here. Erik, how did you see it in the theatre?
They were showing a retro screening at the cinema in Dublin, and it was sold out. There was 700,000 people there.
Okay.
700,000 people in a movie theater?
It's a big cinema.
What, in COVID times?
Yeah, but we were all socially distanced.
That was in a bloody big cinema.
It was, yeah.
So, but it didn't get it didn't get a video premiere in Australia until June of 1988. So it really sat on the shelf. Although it did play on. I found listings for it playing on TV in the United States, the United Kingdom as well. So yeah, it's an oddity. It's a strange movie, but it's not boring. I didn't find it boring, which of course again is the biggest crime a horror movie commit, or a slash movie, or even any kind of movie really, is to be boring. So also, actually, the other thing I was to mention was the brother's girlfriend also played. I think she played the wife of Mad Max in Mad Max from 1979. So in the flashback sequence in that. So, but yeah, that's all I have for this one, really.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not a boring film. It's just so frustrating. But I mean, any final thoughts? I mean, all I can really say is, what I've already said. I would like to see this cleaned up. I think there is a good movie in there somewhere.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, well, given that it is you can watch on YouTube, did we get much feedback on this?
Yeah, because the turnout for Early Frost was next to nothing, there won't be a grade or a review this week, but I will reiterate that if you haven't seen Early Frost and wish to try to make sense of it all, it's on YouTube. Actually, there's 2 copies on YouTube, I believe. So until the next time, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and you can listen on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and about 1 billion different podcatchers. If you enjoy the show and are willing and able to provide a monetary contribution, please consider joining us on Patreon for as little as $1. We really appreciate that, guys. And finally, our email address is thehysteriacontinues@gmail.com.
Cool, excellent, and thank you to everyone who has been supporting us. We're just working our way through the late 1970s now for our top 3. So 1978 is available. Our top 3 in 1978. It's about 90 minutes, isn't it? That's quite in depth. We go with that one, and so 1979, and then I think we've agreed we're going on to the 90s after that. So do join us over on Patreon if you feel you would like to. So I can't remember there. I was going to say something and it's gone straight out of my head. But talking of things going straight out of my head.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
Did you hear Roger Ebert's review of Early Frost? He said, I see, it is a chilling movie. Frost and ice. I struggled this week with jokes of the week. It was really difficult.
Well, that's why people keep coming back to us.
How have you stuck around for 235 episodes?
Well, yes. Well, I think it's, to be honest, it's kind of, if we wanted to, we could just do not there being 200 odd high profile slash movies, but, we see that our kind of viewing figures or listener figures go down when we cover obscure movies. But to be honest, I've always enjoyed looking at films or watching films I haven't seen before over 1 million times. So I think it's sometimes if you could look outside the mainstream, there are some gems to be had, and Early Frost may not be a gem, but it's certainly a one of a kind thriller. Even if it's kind of one of a kind, what the fuck thriller, it's still kind of an interesting watch. So if you haven't already, then do go and watch it. So, do we have any feedback?
No feedback this week, unfortunately.
Well, is there anything else we want to say before we say what we're going to be doing next time?
Yes, actually, I would like to say, give my condolences to the Comer family. A good friend of ours and a fan of the show, Tristan Comer, passed away this past weekend, and he's just he followed us forever, through thick and thin, and I just want to say, rest in peace, good sir, and thank you for your support.
A regular contributor to our feedback section as well.
And Patreon, yeah, he was an ardent Patreon supporter. So.
Yes, you'll be very much missed, Tristan. So, condolences to your family, and very sorry to see you go, good sir. So, okay, well, I can guess that only leaves to talk about what we're covering next time. And I believe, Nathan, it's you, isn't it?
Yes, and I've decided that I want to go a little more mainstream, and I'm going to go with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. The buzz is back.
The buzz is back, indeed. A very controversial sequel, wasn't it? And
yes.
Judging from the feedback so far on the Facebook page, it still is pressing buttons today. And for that, belated sequel to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And after that, next time, we have a special episode, but I'll keep you hanging on that one. So what are we playing out with, Joseph?
Well, to keep with the cold theme and for the character of Val, we're playing out with Cold as Ice by Foreigner.
Oh, we can chill out to that song.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Cool.
Very good.
Actually, before we sign off, I did want to ask something. What does the title mean? I know they mention it in the song playing out, but does it have any connotations with what happens?
Well, I don't know. My sister lives in Sydney, and this is filmed in Western Sydney. I'm not sure they get frost. Maybe Val was going to get frosted. She had frosted tips, didn't she, in her hairdo at one point?
That could be it, yeah.
And she was quite frosty with some of her friends.
And her children, wasn't she? You would have thought that after killing their father, she would be a better mother, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you'd think she'd at least feel maybe a little guilty about it.
Yeah, she wasn't very nice, was she?
Oh, not really.
So, anyway, if you have any theories about who the killer was or what the hell was going on in Early Frost, then do write in and let us know. But until then, we'll say goodbye to the good people. And we'll catch you next time on The Hysteria Continues. So, say goodbye.
Why?
Sorry, I thought you said say why.
For love.
Kill it with fire.
You're as cold as ice. You will